Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Film Odyssey podcast. Me and my brother talk about the greatest films ever made. And today, we're going to list the 20 of the AFI Top 100 that we've seen so far. So, Randy, how did I do? How did I get through that intro?
I wasn't even paying attention. I'm not even joking.
Yeah.
My mind was 20 miles away. I was just thinking about, how you didn't update, the spreadsheet on the thing. It doesn't have Spartacus on it, but fuck it. We have it written down here.
We got it written down. We're good. We figured it out. But yeah, so we're going to go through the bottom 20 that we've seen so far,
yes,
from 100 to 81.
Yes. And
we're just going to talk how we would list them, because how they're listed currently, that shit ain't right.
That shit ain't right.
Not even close.
Yeah, according to us, our very astute film critics that we are.
Our expert opinions, as it were.
Expert opinions from all the movie sets that we've worked on. Yeah, they got to do some cleaning up here. But real quick, I want to get this out of the way though. The 81 through 90. Do you think that was in general better than 91 through 100? Do you think as a whole? I think as a whole it was.
See, here's the thing. There are two films in the 81 through 90 that are the worst films we've agreed on in this list. But I think 81 through 90 actually had two of the strongest films we've seen so far. Easily. It's one of those things where it has extremes.
Averaged out the same?
I think it averaged out the same.
That sounds kind of weird.
It does sound kind of weird, but yeah, so...
I think in general it was better.
Yeah, all the films in the 80s was stronger. I think that's good.
You think so?
All the films in the 90s, just none of them were bad.
None of them were that bad?
None of them were that bad. They were all good.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Do you want to talk about the films we think are bad first?
Yeah, I guess we'll start with the bottom and work our way up, right? So at number R100 or 20 or however we want to do it.
It'll be 100.
Yeah, so at our number 100 currently is Bringing Up Baby, the Howard Hawks film that just couldn't get it done.
About the, it wasn't a panther.
It was a leopard.
It was a leopard, right, yeah.
A leopard named Baby.
A leopard named Baby.
And Katharine Hepburn. And Cary Grant, and Randy's like, fucking die, Katharine Hepburn.
Well, just the first 15 minutes of that movie kind of just, sets you on the wrong track for the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
Because the last, 30 minutes or something like that of that movie, it's actually pretty decent, pretty funny, pretty good jokes and whatnot, but, man, does, the first part of that movie just not set up that at all. Just, it doesn't get you in the mood for any of that.
And a lot of it does come down to the opening of it definitely has a kind of almost a cringe humor element to it.
It does, really.
And that's one of those things that I don't know,
maybe if you really like The Office, you'd Bring Up Baby. I don't mean to get too controversial.
Look, Bring Up Baby is one of those films where I could definitely say it's probably just somebody else's taste. If it's somebody else would probably really dig it, but we were able to both agree that this was the worst film we watched so far.
Yes, it was the worst film we watched so far. The acting in it isn't all that great. It's serviceable. I mean, it's fine,
Yeah, I know it's
not
getting an Oscar
amazing,
nod.
exactly. Yeah. And it's there's nothing really all that impressive about the film, other than the fact that they're using leopards to film with, and this is pretty early on, and there's only a couple of Maulings on set.
A couple.
only a couple.
And Katharine Hepburn and Cary Grant, they are charming.
They got good chemistry together. Some of the jokes are really funny still.
Yeah,
but. It's just
the good jokes are far.
It's not descriptive of the whole movie.
Yeah, and that's kind of why we ended up putting Bring Up Baby as the bottom of our list.
And a similar movie that we put near the bottom, Swing Time.
Yeah, number 99. This is the Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers dance.
But this
film.
one is a musical comedy instead of a straight up comedy like Bring Up Baby.
Yeah,
but it still has that dynamic between a male and a female lead. And Swing Time, though, it's just the comedy really isn't there. It's really playing second fiddle to just Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers just dancing their heart outs.
Yeah. Oh, the choreography and the dance numbers in this are amazing.
If we were rating this list on just choreography and dance numbers, this would be number one by far.
Oh, yeah. It's the thing is all the dance numbers are really, really good. S tier.
Extremely impressive.
Everything in between it is mediocre to bad.
Yeah. Like, it's just not good.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like, I don't want to disparage, Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers as like actors, because they're actors. They're just turning in a performance that's, reasonable. It's just the script is very much not there. It is only to service them dancing, which is kind of the point. But it's like, if that's the only point, then I would just watch the dance numbers and forget the rest of the movie.
I think, it was just kind of like, I guess it's just kind of a way to get people into the theater to watch them dance.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's one of those things where it's like, this is the glue that holds the dance sequences together. And so it's like, just kind of slap a couple things in there, to get the dance sequences in. And then bada bing, bada bong, you're good.
Yeah.
You got a movie.
Yeah, and the other thing is Swing Time is also... It's, the Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers movies that's on this list. But unanimously, people say this isn't their best movie. Their best movie is supposedly Top Hat, which everybody says should be on this list, but it's not.
I have not seen.
Me, neither have I. But everybody.
This is a movie we're gonna have to revisit later when we're done with the list and be like, is it better than the movie that's on the list?
Is it better? But a movie that we do know is better.
Real quick though, we're not finished with Swing Time.
You're not finished yet?
I'm not finished with that movie. Like, I don't think I've stated enough just how damn impressive the Mr. Bojangles thing is in that movie. That number?
Oh, yeah.
So impressive.
Yeah, the technical aspects of it alone are impressive. Like how, and also just Fred Astaire's ability to not only dance with himself, where it's like, oh, it's a camera trick, obviously, but how they had to do it in a practical manner is insane.
And just how perfect he needed to be to get it done.
Yeah.
It's actually astounding. Although I was very disappointed I wasn't able to find anything on if the real Mr. Bojangles commented on his performance.
Yeah, because
I was so disappointed. I wanted to know.
We might be able to find something about it, but we have not been able to get any confirmation to it. But yeah, it's also a weird thing because that dance number is also kind of like hashtag kind of racist.
Well, it's really off-putting. I mean, he does the whole thing in blackface, and you're just kind of like, it's real impressive. And I really wish I knew the person that he's supposed to be, like, tributing to, how they felt about it. Because they're the most important person to, like, that person has the judge's gavel. They get to decide whether it's okay or not, But
yeah.
I can't find anything. He never commented on it. And so now we're just going to have to leave it with, it's really impressive, but real off-putting. That it does the whole thing like that, You're
this is probably the most off-putting movie on the list, right?
Well, just because the most impressive part of the movie has that, big-ass asterisk right next to it, It's like, that
it's
part...
the big old racist asterisk right there.
Yeah, exactly. You're just like, can I like this? Like, it's really impressive, but, can I is this okay? Like, it's bad, Why does the movie have to make me feel like this? God damn it.
But a movie that makes me feel good is the movie next on our list that I've been using as the bar.
The benchmark.
The benchmark. You must be at least this good for me to be on the AFI, and that's Yankee Doodle Dandy at 97.
So you're saying...
Or 98.
The last two movies that we've talked about off the list...
those ones would be definitely in contention to being off the list.
I think for sure.
Yeah. But Yankee Doodle Dandy, it's a
nice
great movie.
It's a nice movie.
I say it's great. I say it's great just because I love James Cagney in it.
I mean, he's really good in that movie, but he's the only thing about that movie.
I think I really love the production.
Well,
I love the dancing.
You're just like, I don't know, trying to defend, but I think it's a nice movie. It's a movie that doesn't really it's not hard to watch. It's not really making you think about these really difficult questions like some of the other movies we've watched, like Sophie's Choice, or,
Blade Runner,
Last Picture Show, where they've got these, or even Do the Right Thing. These movies have these big questions and themes about life and all these different things, but Yankee Doodle Dandy kind of takes a step back and it's no, it's just a nice movie about a guy's life.
It's nice. It's super patriotic. It has some stunning dance numbers. It has some big set pieces, and James Cagney is turning in a performance which is oh, this is why you were considered one of the greatest actors for 50 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it kind of hits nice, even, I don't know, white bread,
it
kind of everybody can get some enjoyment out of this. It's fine. It's just good enough to be like, you got to be better than this.
Yeah, it is.
For the list.
That's why it's the bar.
And I think that's a good place for it to be. Because it's not really all that impressive or thought-provoking or anything like that. Yeah. It's just, it's a nice
It's a movie that prioritizes function, right? It is a
very functional movie.
100% it's a functional movie, and it shows you this is how your movies should operate to function. Because it hits it in all the right spots.
Now, a movie that doesn't function in all the right ways,
but is incredibly impressive.
Kind of similar to Swing Time in that element, Titanic.
Yeah, that's our number 97.
I know some people are going to be real surprised that it's this low.
I've heard people try to put this in the top 10 before.
But the story just isn't really there. Like, everything else about the movie is insanely impressive.
Here's the thing. It's not the fact that the story's not there. It's the fact that Rose and Jack's relationship is the least interesting part about the movie.
That relates to the next movie we're going to talk about, but real quick on this one, it really is like the least interesting part of the movie. Like the relationship between them and the antagonist, I can't remember. Cal.
Played by Billy Zane.
Yeah, played by Billy Zane. The like relationship between the three of them is like very whatever. Like
it's the whole thing where it's like, and there might also be a thing where the knowledge the boat's gonna crash, so their romance is like superfluous to the actual tragedy. No, it's adding a human element to it, so I guess that's not right. I don't think it's like
superfluous, although it would be really like kind of neat or cool if they went for that being like a main theme of the movie, is that their love for each other was superfluous. But like that's definitely not the thing about this movie. It was definitely not superfluous. It meant a lot to Rose.
Yeah,
right?
the whole point is like, oh, this whirlwind romance changed her forever.
Yeah,
like the death of Jack was as bad as the sinking of the Titanic.
Sinking of the Titanic, which is like, it was kind of like a neat element of the movie, but it's just, it doesn't really come across that well because like Cal is just like this random dick. Yeah, all the time.
His whole thing is he's a posh asshole.
And he doesn't even seem to have like that good of motives either for being like this really big posh asshole, or do things that I think he would do being this posh asshole that he is. It's like,
it's the movie that tried to do what Yankee Doodle Dandy did. Was its stories like, we're just trying to be a functional melodrama, but the problem is it's not. It's trying to play to the lowest common denominator because it was made for so much fucking money that James Cameron's like, we have to play the lowest common denominator to even attempt to break even.
Yeah, they needed the main story for this movie to kind of be real digestible by all audiences, which it is.
Yeah.
You know, it's not that complicated. You know, it is a story we all know about. You know, it's basically fucking Romeo and Juliet. Basically,
yeah.
I mean, he does die at the end, and she lives.
Shut up. No, she died at the end, too. Threw the heart of the ocean in, which Randy is still angry about.
Yeah, why did she throw it in? Whatever. Yeah. But anyways, Titanic, everything else about that movie, real impressive.
All the side characters are great. Kathy Bates' character is fantastic.
Really good. Which is kind of funny because she's the most modern character in it. But, like, she's funny because, like, you know, it is a real person, right? But yeah, the main story, the main plot of that movie, not so great.
Which sucks because I do actually enjoy the film. I do actually enjoy it, but it is it's a weird because it's such a light movie. It's 3 hours long, but it feels like a light movie.
Yeah, it's just like that whole thing of Cal's character just like really grates me because I like a very personable like villain, like somebody you can understand where they're coming from. You know they're bad, they're the bad guy. But you know why they're the bad guy, which leads us into Spartacus.
Our next film on the list at number 96.
96.
Which, same problem as Titanic. The main character of the film is the least interesting part. Spartacus, played by Kirk Douglas, is not an interesting character because he's just perfect.
Yeah, he's just perfect in every way.
But
his villains, on the other hand,
Laurence Olivier and Charles Lawton playing the Roman villains, the Roman Senate, are so good. Oh so my god. And I understand why they are considered some of the greatest actors to have ever lived.
It's kind of funny because the movie starts out pretty good. when they're in like the Roman like gladiator training camp.
Yeah,
with
starts at the slave quarry.
Yeah, starts at the slave quarry, goes to the gladiator training camp, and those parts are pretty good.
Really awe-inspiring.
Really, really good. But as soon as they introduce the Romans, which are supposed to be the main like antagonists of the film, they just take over the whole show, and then Spartacus basically plays second fiddle to them.
Yeah, and it's one of those things because Spartacus's whole drive is this symbology of like freedom and rights for all people and all this other stuff. It's a good thematic thing going on, but the thing is the villains are just more interesting characters to just be with because they have this Game of Thrones-esque web they're trying to spin and they're trying to screw each other over, and they're just more interesting to hear talk too.
Yeah, they have their own like web that they're trying to set up to like capture both Spartacus and the Roman people. You know, it's just so much more interesting. Spartacus is just such a bland Mary Sue, and it just
it really feels like this was a vying of three very powerful forces.
Which, I mean, it was between, you know, the director, the writer, and the
main actor and producer. Who, yeah, because Kirk Douglas wanted Spartacus to be one way, Dalton Trumbo wanted it to be something else, and Stanley Kubrick wanted it to be something completely different. And they're all trying to make a masterpiece, and they're all vying in different directions, and it comes out being okay.
Yeah, I mean,
impressive.
I think it's good. Like, I think at this point, I'm starting to say that the movies are good.
Yes.
The ones I said before were either not good or okay, and now this is where I stake my claim: is the movies are starting to get good.
Yes.
Spartacus is a good movie.
This is in good Spartacus. Tier, right? Yes.
This is good tier. These are like B plus tier.
The next movie that's going to be on the good tier. Or do you still got stuff on Spartacus?
I kind of want to talk a little bit more about Spartacus because I enjoyed the movie, and it's one of these things where it's just like, man,
you want to love it?
I want to love it because, like, I mean, I just got to really get it out there. Got to make sure, like, I stake my claim here. Everybody knows that I heckin' loved the Romans in this movie. It was so good. It was, well, my patented thing on this podcast now is so good.
They were really good. They were really good. The thing is with this movie is because I'm going in and I'm like, okay, it's a Stanley Kubrick movie. It's the first Stanley Kubrick movie we're going to watch. But I'm like, I know Spartacus is like his worst movie, which is crazy because you watch this movie and you're like, this is still a really good movie, and this is his worst movie. But
whoa. It's also good tier, not really good tier.
Yeah. But the thing is, it's like it's the movie that feels the most like compromised for everyone's vision. Like, I feel Dalton Trumbo wanted to write a film that was a commentary on civil rights, human rights, wanted to write something
a little deeper.
A very deeper movie that was dealing with, you know, the politics of the time. He was coming off the Hollywood blacklist to make this movie.
And have Spartacus be a much deeper character to represent all these things?
I think he wanted him to be this, like, bland Mary Sue character and have him be this perfect bastion. He's like, oh, he's the symbol of the good and true of humanity. And Kirk Douglas was like, I want to make my Ben-Hur. I want to prove to Hollywood that's like, oh, you didn't give me, you know, Ben-Hur. I'm going to show you that I'm the best swinging dick actor on this fucking planet.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He wanted to be the epic hero. And then you had Stanley Kubrick pointing out pretty upfront that Spartacus is not an interesting character. He's flawless, which makes him boring. And he's like, I want to make a movie about these Romans in the Senate because that's the more interesting stuff because it shows the complexity of man, which is like, they're all vying for different movies.
Yeah.
And they all have to compromise to make this film, and Spartacus is like, it's good because all the people involved are incredibly fucking talented.
But it's not great.
That's my stake on Spartacus. Good, but it's definitely not great. We even said it's 30 degrees off every direction to be a masterpiece.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely could have been, but it wasn't. Now, for a movie that was really good and did everything it could to be so, Toy Story.
It's just a nice movie.
It's a really nice movie and very impressive for its time.
And also has a lot more deeper things going on with it that we got into a pretty deep rabbit hole when we were talking about it on the podcast.
Because there's, like, it's one of these things that happens a lot with, like, kids' movies or television where there's a little bit more to see when you're an adult.
Yes.
When you watch them.
Well, good kids television and movies.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of kids entertainment that just ages horribly once you hit 18.
Yeah, but Toy Story, on the other hand, was one that, like, it hit different.
Toy Story. It hit different.
It hit different. But, it has a lot going for it. Like the story is, it's fine. It's like not the deepest thing, but like the themes are really good in the movie. I think the acting is actually really good for voiceover.
Actually,
really good.
It's really,
and the
really,
animation that
really
fits
good.
into it too. Like they worked hard on this movie. You can tell.
Yeah, and this is also one of those films where, speaking of the acting, they got in like America's nice guy, Tom Hanks, to come in and play Woody, and they got probably the biggest like all-American family guy of the time, Tim Allen, to come in and play Buzz Lightyear. And it's like, and it's playing in these themes of like masculine iconography of the the cowboy and the spaceman, and that's dealing in directly with Andy's like growing up, and it's such a very deep and interesting movie if you try and just slice it down just a little bit.
Yeah, there's like a lot to dig into there, but it is a kids movie. It's like one of these things where it's just like at the end of the day, they don't explore all of these topics because it would kind of cut into the fact that it's a family movie,
and it's trying to appeal to the family, but it's one of those things where I so appreciate this film. This film is like a fine glass of wine after like a long fucking show.
Yeah, actually, this movie is a great way to just kind of like wind down, watch Toy Story. Like, there's nothing in this movie that's gonna like upset you, really. Like, there's nothing here, but it's so nice. It's like how Yankee Doodle Dandy was like, it's just a nice movie. Like, this one is a really nice movie.
Yeah, and the other thing, this is also the film that created arguably one of the most influential or powerful or most consistent production companies in the world, which is Pixar.
Yes.
Like, they made this movie and Disney was like, oh no, we need to own you now. Because if you make a few more of these, we won't be able to afford you anymore.
Yeah.
And
Toy Story is just like, it's a cultural phenomenon. Everybody knows Woody and Buzz Lightyear now.
Yeah. And to think about it, like, the movie came out in 95, and I'm like, this is as big as, like, Mickey Mouse. Like, arguably, this is one of the most... This is probably the biggest cultural touchstones for, like, children's media of the 90s.
Oh,
it have to be in the top 5, at least.
Top 3, probably.
Yeah, I mean...
What's gonna beat this? Like, freaking Kirby? I don't freaking know.
I'm trying to think, when did Power Rangers come out?
Oh, I think Power Rangers came out earlier than this.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. Like, it's a huge, like, just cultural juggernaut, and it's just... Yeah, it's such like, a sweet movie.
It's like Pokemon. Like,
yeah, it's just such a sweet, nice movie.
Sweet, nice movie. It's got a good soundtrack too, which I think doesn't get enough love.
Because people keep memeing on Randy Newman's singing voice, but I'm like, no, that's sincerity. The sincerity is so good. And there's that one sequence where Buzz is gonna fly out the window and it starts singing, no flying no more. I'm like, oh, it tears my soul in half. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so Toy Story, great movie.
So impressive that it's this good for the first, like, fully CGI movie.
And it's just so clean.
Yeah.
But what movie next on the list that is not very clean, you would argue it's incredibly gritty, is number 94, The French Connection.
Yeah, French Connection. This movie is missing the part where, with, like, the themes, right? It's kind of missing that, like, kind of deeper element to the movie. It has some that you can like kind of dig into.
You're really more in this as a character study of Popeye Doyle.
Of Popeye Doyle. And the movie, I don't know if it's really tied down by the fact that it's kind of like more of like a biography, like a retelling of something that happened. But it's still pretty good. It's a movie that you can kind of like just watch and not really have to like study unless you're looking at the editing.
Which actually
really good.
Actually studied this in film school. Actually had to do that, and
the behind the scenes of how the movie was made. Those things are much more impressive than the actual movie. Although the movie itself is still pretty good.
Oh yeah, Gene Hackman is fantastic in this movie as Popeye Doyle.
We're in the pretty good part right here.
Yeah, and the thing is with The French Connection is it's also a movie you can see its fingerprints everywhere.
Oh yes,
everywhere. Like after 1971, you could like follow all these like gritty crime drama cop shows on TV, books, whatever, and you can like trace all those visual stylings to like some aspect of the French Connection. And the editing in this movie is something that's probably like praised a whole hell of a lot, but it's kind of deserved because it's so clean and snappy, and it really flows all this together, and it compresses, God, like 2 years of Popeye Doyle's life into like a tight 104 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's just such a like a fine workmanship of filmmaking. And again, Gene Hackman is great in this movie.
Really good.
Deserved his Oscars. Yeah.
Another thing, like, and it just has so much impact on movie. Like, you remember the scene where, like, he gets shot at by the sniper on the rooftop?
Yeah.
And he, like, runs up the stairs, but the sniper's already gotten away and, like, see him? That's in so many movies now. That, like, whole sequence is in so many movies now. They're like, I see him on the roof, and they run up to the rooftop, and then, he's gone, you know?
Oh, what is it? The car chase, where he's chasing the train, he's underneath, and it's, like, growing through all of, like, undercity New York. And it's like so intense, and it's so fast paced, and it's so crazy. I'm like, that's one of the best car chases in cinema.
And it's kind of funny because, like, even though like these movies aren't closely related, I don't think one would exist without the other. Like the Bourne Identity movies. Like, do you think they would exist without the French Connection? Like, they use like a bunch of the tropes from this movie.
Actually, wait a minute.
Like those type of movies, like really, like they feed a lot off of the French Connection because like those like fast cut, chasing people around, you know, like across the city, trying to track people down type of thing. Like, yeah. That's in French Connection. Like, that's the movie, right?
Yeah, a lot of those, like, it's really weird because you think of those, like, low-budget, like, direct-to-DVD action movies. Most of them, I think, have plots related to the French Connection. Like, all those, like, cheap 80s, like, action movies where it's like, oh, it's a lone cop and he's hunting for the... for the lone gunman or the drug smugglers. That's basically the plot of the French Connection. The French Connection is almost a template for how to make 80s cop dramas.
Yeah. I mean, it's just such an influential movie, and the acting is really good in it.
And it is entertaining.
The action's really good, too. It's really entertaining. The way it was made is super impressive, although don't try it at home, kids type of thing.
Yeah, you'd probably die. William Friedkin thought he was going to die in a few ways he did this movie.
But, like, you know, it's a little tied down by the fact that it is a retelling of something that actually happened, and it had the person who was actually a part of it, part of the production.
Yeah.
You know, they had Popeye Doyle on the production for it, and so I think, like, it's one of those things where Willis... You don't want to give them too much, like, liberty with the source material, you know, with, like, these movies about, like, real people. You don't want them to get, like, too out there with what they're trying to portray. But you want to give them, like, just a little bit of leeway so you can get, like, more out of it, you know? You get that, like,
that delicious flavor.
That artistic license, you know, where they just get a little bit more out of it than they should, but not too much.
Yeah. I mean, you want to talk about artistic license? Do you want to talk about this next movie? Because that's a lot of artistic license.
What do we have next?
It's Pulp Fiction.
There's a lot of artistic license in Pulp Fiction. It gets real...
Speaking of influential movie...
This is the first, like, art movie?
I mean...
Would you qualify it as such? Because it is very non-traditional.
Yeah, it's a non-linear narrative. It's more closer to just an accumulation of 4 short films kind of stapled together. It has themes going on in each one that's a little bit different, but they're all kind of related. And it's weird to say a Tarantino film is an art house film because he's become, like, I guess the closest thing to a, like, grindhouse Oscar Beatty director. Tarantino has a weird career when I think about it.
Oh, very weird.
Yeah.
This movie is also pretty weird. Like, there's stuff in this movie that you're like, he got away with this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so Pulp Fiction.
Is there a sign outside my house that says...
I know. Like, Pulp Fiction is just one of these movies where every time I look at it, I'm just like, oh my god, I can see the entirety of 90s cinema laid before me. Because
everybody saw this and they were like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
I want that.
Mm-hmm. Dude, how many...
You can do that? I want it.
Yes, because he was able to... Because Tarantino, he figured out... Because his whole style is that he does pastiche. He takes all these things from all these different movies, genres, things he saw when he was growing up, things he saw in, like, whatever theater, and he's like, puts them all in a blender, works them out, and puts it together with some stellar dialogue and just runs with it. Like, Pulp Fiction is an accumulation of, like, French new wave crime movies, American exploitation, and like 50s noir, and there's all this stuff going in there, and it has this crazy 90s laissez-faire, I don't give a fuck attitude to it, and it's just such a compelling movie. Not only is it such a compelling movie, it's so watchable, and it's so just well put together for how long it is. It's almost like, what? It's over like a 2-hour movie, and it feels like a tight 90.
Yeah, well, it's not just watchable; it's listenable.
Yeah. Oh
All
yeah.
the characters in the movie, like the way they talk, is just so natural, so personable. You know.
Oh yeah. I mean, everybody says Tarantino's biggest boon is the fact he writes great dialogue.
His dialogue is amazing. It's so good. It doesn't feel as wooden as other movies do. It feels very natural. Like you're listening in on a conversation instead of these people are performing a conversation in front of you.
Which is really hard to do.
Is it really? Like,
Kind
I don't know these things.
Look, and a lot of times, like, you can tell if somebody's a bad actor or it's a bad movie when you can tell, like, the actor's waiting to say their line when the other person's done talking, and then they say their line. It's one of those things you can tell when people are like, I just want to hit my beat so I can leave the scene.
I see.
This movie doesn't have that.
It really doesn't.
And that's also because Tarantino's really good at directing his actors. Also, Samuel L. Jackson's great in this movie. John Travolta was a revelation in this movie. We
He's
both
really
agreed he was super good in this. But yeah, and
It's a super quotable movie. It's got a lot of great beats, a lot of funny scenes, but
it's the movie that it all comes together really well for how just foreign all the elements are put into it. But yeah, it's one of those things
he goes
where,
a little too far.
yes, we get it. He goes a little too far. But it's also a thing where it's a beautiful, flashy, like, postmodernist kind of movie.
Yeah.
But it's the stuff that's, like, underneath it that more chew on themes,
Yes.
thought-provoking
Yeah,
stuff.
the things that really get the crunch out of the movie. Is all the things that the movie is supposed to be, like, talking about, right?
Yeah. Which isn't super there. Like, the stuff it's talking about is more, like, of the medium.
Yes. It's not so much about, like, culture or anything like that. It's more about movies.
Which is good.
We don't get a lot of that.
We don't.
The introspective, not retrospective, the introspective movies that know they're a movie, and yet the dialogue doesn't seem like that.
It's not
They're
snarky.
they're not snarkily self-referential,
It's not like Scream where it's too meta for its own good in some
Yes.
cases.
But no, Pulp Fiction is just good. It's just really good.
Another movie that's really good is our number 92 on the list. The
For
Last Picture Show.
Many different reasons. Very different. I'm not sure if we could get movies that were as different as these movies.
Yeah, because The Last Picture Show is such a minimalist kind of movie. It's that stark black and white is so beautiful. How kind of depressing a lot of it is, and how introspective it is. Introspective on, like, characters and culture and how, like, America kind of
On a young man's life, that's basically what the story is about. It's about it's a coming of age story for a young man in, I would say, probably like middle America.
it's supposed to be somewhere in, like, Texas, but yeah, middle America.
Somewhere in middle America in a small town, and his small town is dying. He's getting older and realizing that getting older it's not what it's all cracked up to be. His, those quote unquote like golden years of like a life, those like the coming of age to like, like 16 through like 20 something, where people are always like, oh, those were my best years. It's not all it's cracked up to be,
He realizes as he grows up and becomes the adult, the man of the town, that, man, every step of the way is just harder, or it disillusions me more about life, about everything. I equate this movie as like a hangover.
Yeah.
It's like, this movie is the hangover of youth. And it's also even parallels like American culture, right?
Yes.
Because all those small towns that kind of like, war happened and everybody had to move, go off to war, and a lot of people didn't come back. And a lot of these towns just kind of like vanished into time. And it's like, this is like America's hangover after Vietnam or after World War II or Korea or whatever. It's like,
Well, it's also a very good look at disillusionment because it's not too heavy-handed with it, even though it's like the main thing about the movie.
yeah,
It doesn't just kind of like whack the audience over the head with it. Like, it's very natural in the way it progresses, and you really understand where all the characters are coming from with what they're doing. That it all makes sense. The characters are very natural. Like, they're people you could have known.
every performance in this is great.
Really good.
Every last one of them. I like to point out,
It's such a simple movie.
it's so simple. It's so simple. And I love pointing out that, like, Sybil Shepherd, this is, I think, her first film, and she's great in it. Jeff Bridges is, like, this is one of his early roles, and he is really good, playing kind of like the doofus jock guy, and it's just,
Well,
all
I mean,
performances
Jeff
are good.
Bridges is like so young in this movie; he's hardly recognizable.
It's really off-putting, right?
Yes.
He kind of looks like Kurt Russell, which is kind of weird, but I guess not. They're both like square-jawed, brown-haired dudes, so yeah, it's a style.
It's a thing.
But yeah, it's just such a good movie, and it's also a movie I would probably recommend the most out of what we've talked about so far, because it's a movie I think not enough people have seen, and it's a movie that talks a lot about that moment in people's life that I think everybody can relate to at least something here. That moment of, I don't know what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. Everything looks so weird, and it's that realization that, yeah, you feeling lost in the world, that's just how it is. Adulthood sucks. Life is hard. And that's what this movie is. But there's that little hope at the end of the tunnel for yada yada. But
I'm not sure if I would really like recommend this one the most. I think, though, out of the ones we've talked about so far, this is the one I wish more people had seen.
yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to people because, I mean, it's pretty melancholy, kind of depressing movie, especially more near the end. And, you know, obviously it's not PG.
No.
But, I mean, like, to recommend to people to watch more would be, like, Spartacus. Because it just seems like, you know, you could just watch that movie, right? Like,
yeah.
That seems like a pretty easy thing to get people to watch, and then we can talk about how good the Romans were and whatnot.
Yeah.
But The Last Picture Show, this is kind of like one of the only movies on the list right here where I'm thinking, like, I should probably go back and watch that movie.
Like, it probably hits so different now.
I'm pretty sure, like, I'm not giving that movie enough credit as it's due. Like, it was one of those things, you know, where it's like, as I remember it currently, I think this is a good place for it on the list. But I'm pretty sure I could go back and rewatch it. Get that little extra out of it.
I feel like that's a lot of The Last Picture Show, because I remember when we did our Milestone episode the first time, and we even made the joke when we were gonna do it originally that we kept skipping over it. It's just like a movie, it's in there, it's good, but I don't know how good it is. And then we thought about it, and we keep ruminating on it and going back to it, and it's like, no, that movie's really good.
That's a movie that just kind of, like, sits with you, that doesn't, like, really come to, like, the forefront of your thought, you know? It's kind of more in the back, because it's just such a simple, very personable movie. It's not very flashy at all. And it just kind of like, it's not like Pulp Fiction, right? Where you can think of Pulp Fiction and you're like, oh yeah,
you can visualize whole sections of the movie.
You can quote it, you know, one after another. But the feeling of Last Picture Show is more there. You know, like, it didn't leave you with so much like a visual and lots of like little one-liners you can say and quotables, you know? It's more like the feeling of the movie.
That sits like a brick in your stomach. You just kind of carry it with you. And
it's
then
really good.
It just sits there. It's really, really good. But another movie that's also really, really good is Easy Rider, number 91, which, that movie's something different, right?
Easy Rider is something different. I was expecting to not like it, but
I thought you were going to hate it.
I really liked it. I thought it was great. I thought it was, whoa. We're getting to the movies I think are great
we
now.
We finally hit great.
We've passed the point of the pretty good to like really good to now we're in the great movies. I thought Easy Rider was great. I thought the whole like idea of the movie was great. Them just like going cross country with like this drug money, but it's not about the drug money, really. It's about their experience, and
they're not running away from like a cartel. It's not like, oh, it's a chase movie. No, it's these guys just traveling, just like seeing America.
They're like they want to go do something, and they're gonna go do it.
And the whole movie is just about that journey and that existential crisis of like, what's it all mean? What's why is it worth it?
Why are they doing this? They're just kind of doing it at first, and then you realize that there's like more of like a reason of why they wanted to do that. You know, they wanted to be a part of something. You know, that's why they wanted to go to Mardi Gras. They want to be a part of Mardi Gras.
And that's the whole thing with like that counterculture and that hippie movement. A lot of people are like, I just want to be part of something bigger than myself. I want to be part of like the commune, the people, you know. I want to be part of like the love generation. This movie is one of the best commentaries of that like the end of the counterculture, that burnout, that hippie movement, all of it.
It's one of the greatest cultural commentaries on something that was happening when the movie came out.
Yeah.
Because that's something that's like pretty difficult to find, is a commentary on a good one, by the way. Because you can find plenty of commentaries on current culture, right? But having a good commentary on the current culture.
That's both like really nuanced and super casual at the same time. It's one of these things where I don't want to call it dumb luck. I don't. Because you know, Dennis Hopper was using a lot of drugs. There was not much of a script. There was a 5-hour rough cut of this that I cut down to like 90 minutes. But it feels like this was a miracle that this existed and came out so well.
Yeah, I mean, even like Jack Nicholson. Jack Nicholson's performance in this movie is kind of like one of those things where it's just like a gem in the rough, like in the middle of this weird like hippie biker movie, you have Jack Nicholson just giving like a stellar performance.
You have Jack Nicholson showing up being like, I'm gonna do what Jack Nicholson does, man. I'm gonna steal every scene I'm in. That's Jack Nicholson's modus operandi. That's why he has so many supporting actor nods, because every time he shows up, he steals the scene.
And here's the thing too, is that it doesn't stand out of place in this movie for this side character to show up halfway through the movie and steal the show, and then they leave that side character.
It parallels Homer's The Odyssey, right? They are traveling through all these little things. They're seeing this country, they're seeing this world, they're traveling, and they meet these obstacles, and it's just he's another character they bring in. He's the Cyclops.
But the thing is that like they bring him in and then he gets left behind. I mean, you know, his character dies in the movie. Yeah. But it's one of these things where it's like this character who's so good in the movie, like he's such a captivating person, they just pick him up and leave him be. And that's kind of like that idea of the cultural movement is something that gets picked up and then left behind.
This movie is another one of those movies where I feel it almost benefits more to like multiple viewings with like a history textbook in front of you.
Yeah, with like, you know, this is a movie that probably gets the most out of like video essays.
Oh, probably. it would be fascinating. It'd be fascinating because this movie also, you can read a Vietnam reading
Parallel,
into this. Yeah. You can Vietnam, drug culture, this is the movie that is called shouting, yo, the 60s is pretty cool, like Woodstock, we're doing all the drugs, free love, we're gonna change the world, but like, that hangover's coming. And Easy Rider is called shouting it.
Yes.
And it's also the movie that was like, hey, this is the battle cry of the new Hollywood. We're gonna go in, these are the kind of movies we're gonna make, these are the things we're gonna be commentating about. Go for it, everybody. And
this movie even gets away with like the LSD scene at the end, right?
Which is so out there, so artsy, so weird.
Yeah, it's compared to like your normal like viewing experience in a movie, it is very different. But it so works with the theme of the movie, with like everything that the movie's built up to until that point. And there's so many of these side characters and little things that you want to know more about, but you know that that's not the point of the movie. The point of the movie is that journey that the characters are taking across the country. Like when they go to the commune, right?
Yeah.
And like the commune is like its own like commentary. But the thing is that that's not the point of the movie, that commune. It's to get to Mardi Gras.
Yeah.
It's that journey.
It's about the ride.
Yeah.
We're just taking an easy ride, man.
Exactly. I mean, you know, it's played into the title of the movie. Everybody loves that stuff.
Yeah. It's one of those things. It's an easy movie, you know. But in a movie that's not so easy, well, it wasn't so easy for us to watch because it kept breaking halfway through.
Oh, yes.
And that is Blade Runner at number 9. We're finally into our top 10, boys. Finally into our top 10.
Top 10, coming in at number 10.
Blade Runner. And this one,
Well, do you want to just comment real quick on how the DVD broke like twice in between?
Yes.
And we had to like switch from the cut that had the voiceover in it to the cut that didn't.
Yes.
Near the end of the movie.
So, and you actually went back and rewatched Blade Runner. It's in its entirety with the final cut.
Yeah, the one without the commentary.
The one without the commentary, and yeah. So Blade Runner is probably our most technically difficult to do because one, there's 15 different fucking cuts of that movie.
Yeah, we don't know really which cut we should watch for the podcast. It could be any of them.
And it's another one of those movies that in my all-encompassing knowledge, was like, we're gonna watch the theatrical cut. My copy of the theatrical cut breaks about halfway through.
Yes.
And I was like, fuck it, we'll just finish it with another movie. But it was very
still good.
It was very good.
Even with that whole, the DVD basically breaking halfway through, it was still really good. It didn't really take me out that much from the movie.
And we stopped for like 20 minutes while I tried to fix it.
It took not a insignificant amount of time. But, the whole themes of the movie, I just heckin' loved the themes of the movie. The Roy Batty. Roy Batty's performance.
Rutger Hauer is one of the best actors. Oh my god.
Yeah, that character, which, when they first introduce him, his name is Roy Batty.
He's a baddie,
He's the bad guy. You're expecting, oh my god, this is gonna be so bad.
They're leaning
he's gonna be the most mustache twirling villain you've ever gosh darn seen.
that pulp noir, aesthetic. And it's...
But it's not that at all. It's, it is pretty pulp noir aesthetic. But it's not when they introduce Roy Batty and you think, it's gonna be, the worst villain I've ever seen. He's an amazing villain.
Is he your favorite villain so far?
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely such a good foil to
Deckard.
To
Harrison Ford. Han
thank you.
Solo, Indiana Jones, both are acceptable.
I know.
Mr. President too.
Mr. President. But he's such a good foil to Harrison Ford's kind of straight, almost laid back, straight performance of just kind of not caring about almost anything.
You keep coming back where it's Harrison Ford is a block of wood next to this fucking sculpture.
Yes, freaking Roy Batty is a freaking granite sculpture made by the Romans, and Harrison Ford is where they did the shitty restoration of that painting or whatever.
Oh,
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, where the lady came in and tried to fix it herself with a fucking aerosol gun.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like that. Where he's just kind of this blob of a character.
Which sucks because I think Harrison Ford's actually doing a good performance. If you interpret it a certain way, he is giving a stellar performance. If you interpret it as Deckard is a replicant, then it's an amazing performance. And I think that's another thing about this movie that makes it so good, is that there's so many readings you can go in that are just
there's little teases at what could be,
But that's the thing, there's so many readings of just fan theories about the movie logic, right? And it's that's one level of this iceberg. And then it's now we're just gonna read into it as the existential crisis of humanity. Then it's what's a soul? And it's can you manufacture a soul? Should you manufacture a soul? Does Roy have purpose? Yeah, and in God, what is God? Can man be God if they can create life that is sentient, that can conceptualize its own mortality, like Roy?
What's the difference between Roy and Harrison Ford? And is there a difference?
Is it the soul? Is the soul a tangible thing you can differentiate? That's the thing. Blade Runner is one of those things where it's just the tip of the iceberg, where it's this really cool neo-noir kind of mystery action movie.
You can just watch and just turn off your brain and watch, and it's just fine. But then there's so much more to it.
You turn on your brain and you're just all right, you have to stop it every 15 minutes, get the notebook out, go grab some fucking Kant and fucking Play-Doh and start, all right, how's this working out?
Put on a pot of coffee.
All right, Randy, get the coffee going. We're going to be here for a minute.
But it's that whole foil between the two characters, where is Roy a better human than Deckard? Because Deckard's pretty whatever about everything. He doesn't really want to do his job, but he knows he's the best at it. and he just kind of like mopes around all day. He doesn't really care about much at all, except for like maybe Rachel. But that's more of like a spur of the moment thing. Like, you're not sure if he really cares that much about her,
or he's like, she fine,
or if it's just like a spur of the moment thing. Like, it's just convenient for him at the moment. While Roy has purpose. He has goals. He knows what he wants, and they're like really lofty, aspiring goals. You know, he wants to figure out what's the meaning for him to be there. You know, what is life? You know, is Roy a better human than Deckard? But Roy's not even human. But what is human? Are we humans?
Or are we dancers?
Or are we dancers?
For everyone out there, when we recorded the Blade Runner episode, it's not our longest episode. Do the Right Thing is our longest episode. I think it's like hour 14, something like that. But Blade Runner, we recorded it. It was like, it's our second longest episode. Then we turned it off, and they're like, all right, cool. We both went our separate ways. 10 minutes later, we're like, all right, let's talk about Blade Runner for another like 2 hours.
Yeah, we've talked about that movie probably the most out of all the movies.
Yeah, most like out of podcast,
yes.
By far. And it's such a good movie. It's one of those movies where like I could understand why this would be somebody's favorite movie. Easily. Super easily. Both for like dumb reasons and really smart reasons. It's such a good movie. And it looks beautiful.
Yeah,
that neo-noir
really
aesthetic is
so good.
It's your favorite aesthetic?
I mean, I heckin' love Blade Runner 2049. And that was before I'd even seen the original Blade Runner.
Didn't know what the original Blade Runner was. It was like 2049 though.
I hadn't watched it at all, I'm not gonna lie.
And he's like, I just want Ryan Gosling and Rutger Hauer to just act together in their own Blade Runner movie.
Oh.
But R.I.P. Rutger Hauer. But another person we got to R.I.P. is he was the King of Kings. He was Ben-Hur at our number 9 spot. Also, yeah. So you were talking about how you loved the dichotomy of, or like the back and forth between the hero and the villain of Deckard and Batty. But Ben-Hur and Masala.
Yes.
Oh.
Two men with very lofty goals, and they're very
drive.
They both have that drive. They're both similar characters. Like, that's a very good way to like kind of have that opposition between your main character and your antagonist, is have them, you know, be that kind of like trope where they've like grew up together but they've gone their separate ways.
They're two sides of the same coin.
They're two sides of the same coin, you know. They're both very driven, both principled. That's a good thing about them. They're both principled.
Randy likes lawful evil characters, goddammit.
Yeah, he's got... Masala has reasons. The Romans rule this land. You cannot go against the Romans.
We are legion, damn it.
Rome will come down upon you, Ben-Hur.
Ben-Hur's like, but these are my people. I'm Charlton Heston, for God's sakes. God. But yeah, also... Ben-Hur, I think that was the first movie we watched on this podcast, and
it easily won me over.
It was right. It was up. Every frame was a painting. It was so beautiful,
very visually striking.
And everybody's like, Charlton Heston is such a wooden actor. Oh, he's not good. But I'm like, no, he's not. He's a physical actor.
He is a very physical actor.
Every time he opens his mouth, there's purpose behind it. Every time but that's the thing. Oh, he's talking. Yeah, it's not all his character would be. But he looks at the Roman general, right? When they're in the ship, and I'm like, this is the whole movie right here. Ben-Hur is like, I don't care about you. I have a goal, and that's to get to Massalas.
Even in the slave ship.
And he's like, and I will not break for anybody, especially for you. Run me to the ends of the earth, and I will keep going because I need to get to Masala and kill him in the chariot race sequence, which is so good. That chariot race sequence is like the best action sequence we've seen so far. I mean, okay, the car chase in French Connection is pretty fire, but
it's pretty good. But
that
chariot race,
that shit was scurry.
That shit's different.
Ben-Hur's a movie that everyone talks shit on because it's 3.5 hours long.
Oh, it is very long.
And when we watched it, we were like, oh man. It could use another 20 minutes.
It could use like another 15 minutes.
Yes! And I'm like, that's insane. That movie was so watchable.
It's very, very... It has an intermission and an overture.
And we got up, stretched in the intermission. We're like, all right, cool. And then we're like, oh, the movie's starting again. Let's go back.
We're right back into it. And it was just such an experience.
Yeah, that is the best way to describe Ben-Hur. It's an experience. It's a cinematic experience, and it's just.
I mean, like the ending of the movie. I mean, the stuff with like with Ben-Hur's like parents being like the lepers, and
it's the whole, and Christ shows up, and it's like the stages of the cross and the crucifixion.
Yeah, and it's just like you forget these things happen in the movie. Like the movie is such a big, epic tale. It is an epic, all capitals.
Every sense of the word, it is epic, and it's just. I don't know any way else to praise that movie. It won 11 Oscars for a reason.
Yeah, it won 11 Oscars for a damn good reason. They carved out a mountain.
Yes!
The chariot scenes.
That shit's real!
They literally carved out a mountain.
People thought people died in the chariot sequence. They thought that shit was real.
I mean, it was probably pretty close. I mean, that one guy broke his jaw.
He shattered his jaw.
Shatters his jaw. You're like, break does not do it justice.
Shattered his jaw. They used that take in the movie, by the way.
Of course, it was probably the best take.
It was real good.
It's just such a grandiose movie that, like, really, it kind of, like, uplifts you. You're like, man, I want to be something like that.
Yeah, I want to be somebody with that kind of drive, which is weird because it's a revenge story. That's another thing.
It's kind of a revenge story, yeah.
It really is, because the whole movie revolves around Ben-Hur being betrayed by his best friend, his confidant. You can argue his lover if you dig into the weird gay undertones, but he's been betrayed by somebody, and now he's on this revenge trip to get back at him. And he's like, "Oh, I have to save my mother and my sister who've been like put away in the prisons by him." But it's a revenge story, pure and simple at the very, very base level. But it's a grand event, like revenge story. And it's such a well put together, well told story. I keep repeating myself because it's just so good.
And he saves the Roman general's life, the consul's life,
and he becomes his like adoptive son. And he's like, I'll throw.
He becomes a Roman citizen.
And he's like, I will throw it all away and run in the chariots race just to get Masala. He's like, I will throw all of this away because I have a goal.
It's not necessarily Masala. It's what Masala stands for. You know, the imprisonment of his family, right?
The persecution of his people.
The persecution of his people, you know, all these things. And it's like, the movie's also such a tease because it has, like, the scenes with Jesus. But, like...
You never see
him. Ben-Hur is always like, no, I gotta go do something else.
They're just like, dude, Jesus is right there!
I'm like, it's like the Sermon at the Mount, right?
Yeah.
And he's right there! Ben-Hur, he's right heckin' there. You like, I don't remember who it is, but there's like people that he's like close with that are like telling him, "Oh, you must go and see this man," you know. And he's like, "Nah, I got other stuff to do."
He's like, I got more important shit to do.
And you're just like, it's right there.
Right, Randy wants a lethal weapon where it's Ben-Hur and Jesus chasing the Masala down.
Oh god!
Don't even act like that would be badass. You have Mel Gibson plays Ben-Hur, Danny Glover plays fucking Jesus Christ.
Oh god.
But yeah, so Ben-Hur, great movie. Happy at the number 9 spot.
Very epic movie, but something that's a little more toned back.
Very toned back.
A little more personal. Sixth Sense.
Which, that movie hit
How
you
did
different.
Sixth Sense get this far up the list? Goodness.
Because it snapped your soul in half. That's fucking why.
Because the movie, like, the twist isn't the fact that, alright, everybody, spoilers, the kid sees dead people. And Bruce Willis is dead. That's not the twist of the movie. The twist of the movie is that you actually care about the fucking characters.
Right?
That's the twist of the movie.
No one talks about that. Everybody's just like, oh man, that twist at the end of the movie, man. It totally caught you off guard. You can go back and read through it all. And I'm like, bro, the twist isn't even the most interesting thing about the movie. The fact that Haley Joel Osment should have been nominated for Best Actor is like one of the most interesting parts of this movie. Haley Joel Osment is like fucking 10?
Something like that.
And he is like legitimately a great performance in this movie.
It is
so good.
Such a weird, like, not usual, like, very unusual, weird thing that a child actor is like the main, he's basically like the main character.
Yeah, he is the main character.
Other than like Bruce Willis, I guess you could say.
Yeah, Bruce Willis.
But they're kind of like they're kind of the two main characters of the movie, right? Like there's nobody else. And he gives a main character performance. The child actor gives a Oscar-winning main character performance. Like what?
Yeah.
Hello? Who is this man?
Right? And also you have Bruce Willis showing up. And Bruce Willis showing up to work, that
actually
shit
did a good job. actually did a good job.
Because we saw Bruce Willis in Pulp Fiction, and it's like, Bruce Willis is one of those actors where when he shows up to work, like perform, he shows the fuck up. But it's been, about 2 decades since we've seen that.
It's been a minute.
Been a hot minute. But that's the thing. In this movie, it's like, great performances across the board. The story is really compelling. It has probably...
The story is surprisingly compelling.
Yeah, and the emotional weight that this movie has by the end of it just hits.
Just a punch in the heart, just like straight into. You're just like, wow, I didn't realize this movie was gonna get to this. Like, I was not expecting this at all. This movie tricks you into thinking it's some kind of horror movie. It is really not.
And oh god, the car scene.
Yes, the car scene at the end is like the pinnacle of cinema.
It's the pinnacle of like, yo, here's your heartstrings. We're just gonna keep cranking on those until something breaks. Like, oh,
like the movie just like really it subverts you into thinking that it's like this creepy horror movie in which like bad things are gonna happen to the characters, but the bad things that aren't happening to the characters, it's between the characters. It's in the characters.
It's almost a family drama.
It really is a family drama, and it's just it's crazy good.
It's a movie that's just like, Ben-Hur, this is super epic, like, oh my god. And then Six Sense is like, yo, like, this is probably the most compelling script we've seen. Like, it is so well written. It's so well done.
So well written, so well done, so cleanly. Like, it's just such a clean movie. There's no, like, over the top, like, oh god, why would you do this? Like, this is so bad. Like, nothing like that happens in the movie. Everything is just, like, such a perfect little seamless journey throughout.
Man, this Sixth Sense is a movie that I'm really mad people only remember for the twist.
Also, I'm upset about it because people said that this movie should come off the list because it was, like, more recent.
It was recent, and people were saying, "Oh, it's on there because people thought M. Night Shyamalan was going to be a big deal, and then he wasn't." And
I mean, he hasn't had a very good career since. But
I mean, he always made money. That was his thing.
True. But it's just kind of one of these things where it's like, I don't think it was recency bias. I think the movie was actually that good. It's just, it doesn't seem that way at first. Well, you think about the movie. Like, before you see it, you've heard all these things about it, and you think about it, and you're like, how could that be top 100 movies all time? Really? Is it really that good?
Guy when we went into the recording. I was just like, I don't see how this movie made all this money, how it made all these acclaims. Like, this movie made like $500 million. How? In 90s money.
I was really trying to be optimistic coming into the movie. I was really trying, because I knew about, like, he sees dead people and stuff, and I thought that was the movie. I think that actually benefits the movie. That ability to subvert you from thinking the movie is about, oh, he sees dead people and Bruce Willis's character is dead. It's not about that at all. It's about the characters. It's about the interactions between the characters. It's about how the characters feel about themselves and about the other characters. Like, it's all about them and their experiences. It's not about that, like, cheesy twist, and I think everybody kind of got it wrong.
And we're here to advocate that Sixth Sense is a great movie.
It's a great movie.
But another movie that people were like, but why is this so good? Well, at the time, because since then we figured out, oh no, this movie's fucking great. And that's Goodfellas.
Yep, Goodfellas.
Lost out to Best Picture at the 1990s Oscars to Dances with Wolves. And tragedy of cinema. But Goodfellas showed up that is like, no, we are at least in the top like 2 or 3 gangster films ever made.
It's definitely at least bare minimum top 5 gangster movies all time.
Easily. From across all of cinema.
Yes.
And Martin Scorsese is like, hey, I'm going to do what I do and pull all these different like cinematic styles and just put them together and show like why I'm like the best living director America has to offer. Like, you just throwing it out there. I've been in the game longer than most of you fuckers have been alive. Let's be real here.
I mean, it's a kind of like a show of force of like how good he can direct a movie and how like compelling the characters are in the movie and the journey they go through. Because it's really a movie about the journey of what's the main character's name?
Henry Hill.
It's the journey about Henry Hill's rise and fall, his life, basically.
It's a very stereotypical gangster narrative, the rise and fall of the gangster, right? But this is based on a true story of an actual gangster named Henry Hill, and it's one of those things where it parallels the old school gangster tropes, but it has this new like bend to it. It has this like French New Wave like shooting style. It's very fast. It has some interesting like editing choices. It compresses his entire life into just 2.5 hours, something like that.
Yeah. And you
And
really feel like you get the whole experience.
yes, you get everything out of this. You also get enticed to it. Like, Scorsese is the best at making you want to be one of these guys. Like,
You want to be a wise guy.
you get the feeling of the movie. You understand why Henry Hill would be so tempted to be one of these guys, and you're just like,
And it's only by the end of the movie do you realize why you shouldn't be a wise guy.
yes, it ends horribly for him, and it's such a movie
It
that
ends
just
horribly
gets
for
you-
everybody involved.
Yeah, and you get you're empathetic to him after a point. You're like, he's this drug-addled wife beater gangster, does terrible things, but you're like, end of the movie, you're like, I feel so sorry for him. He had everything, and it's gone through his own downfall. He was his own worst enemy, and I feel so sorry for him.
Yeah, it's like at some points you think,
Joe Pesci,
no,
De Niro,
De Niro's character,
Jimmy.
Jimmy. You think Jimmy is his enemy, right? That's the person you think is like his downfall. It's really not Jimmy. Henry Hill did this to himself.
Yeah, there's everything that led up to the end of the movie of him being put into witness protection and becoming a schmuck is his own. He did it. He did it all to himself, and it's such a compelling story. It's told so well that it's another movie I go back to be like,
really-
Scorsese's a master.
You really experience the rise and fall with him. You know, at the beginning of the movie, you can see why he wants to be a wise guy, why he wants to be a good fella. You know, you can see the temptations into the life and then where that life leads him, you know, and you're like, it's a very natural progression. And then it like takes that extra step where only the people in the life would take that extra step, you know, oh, don't get into the dirty stuff, the drugs and whatnot. But he wants more out of the life. Only somebody who's already so high in it would want even more.
Man, Goodfellas is such a good movie.
Really good.
So watchable.
Very, very watchable, although it's, you know, it's a little
It's a little R-rated.
it's a little R-rated, you know? Like let's not sugarcoat it or anything. It's very R-rated movie.
Another movie that doesn't sugarcoat anything about some of the most hardest stuff a human being can go through. The most hardest. Yes. And that's number 6, Platoon. Which,
such a surprisingly good movie.
I love this movie. I lobbied for it to be way higher on the list.
I saw Charlie Sheen was like the main actor in the movie, and I was like, what? I was like, this can't be good.
Charlie Sheen's become such a meme, you forget he can be a good actor.
He was in this movie. He was really good.
And he's across from great actors in this movie. Keith Davis in this movie. Willem Dafoe is in this movie.
And he's really good in this movie.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, Johnny Depp's in there as like just a side character. The stacked cast in this is insanity.
Very stacked. Very surprisingly stacked cast. And they don't overpower one each other.
No.
They don't. Everybody's their character. They're not trying to like really take over the performance from anybody else.
No one's trying to steal a scene. Even when the point is, hey, like you need to steal the scene from the other guy, and they're just like, no, we're in the shit, man.
They're in it together, you know, just like the guys in the war. They were supposed to be in it together, even though they weren't all the time.
And it's also another movie where Oliver Stone, again, I call this movie Oliver Stone's therapy about Vietnam, because it is probably the most interesting Vietnam movie I've ever seen. It's one of those movies where I'm watching and I'm like, I can actually see these people being real human beings. I can see these real wartime things happening, and I can almost feel what this is like. And it really does give you just like that glimpse into that that 1,000-yard stare.
Yes.
And it's just such a compelling movie. It's one of these movies where it still holds a very strong, cohesive narrative. It still holds these really like strong cinematic elements to it, even though it's trying to tell basically a one-for-one true story. And that is just the Vietnam War was
rough
to
say the least.
And it's just such a good movie. It's so compelling. I love this movie. The action in it was fantastic.
The action's really good. The cinematography is really good, especially like the fight scenes near the battle scenes. Actually, not even fights. The battle scenes near the end were just shot so well.
They're lit by flares flying in the jungle. Other than that, it's almost pitch black.
I don't know why, but that visual of like the flares in the jungle or whatever, that's just different. That is just like its own thing.
You look out and it's pitch blackness, and the flare goes up, and then it's just 1,000 Viet Cong just in the jungle.
That's not the scary thing. The scary thing is seeing nothing. The scary thing is looking out over everything being blown up by this bright white light and not seeing anything. Not being able to parse anything through the trees, you know?
You know they're there, and even with the light of day, you can't see them.
But can they see me? But Platoon is just, it's just so good. Like, the acting in it is really good. Charlie Sheen plays a very personable character. He plays, like, the character that's supposed to be, like, the audience's window into the movie, you know? But he still has his own character traits, his own personality, and you also have him coming against the two dichotomies of war with Willem Dafoe's character and Sergeant Barnes. Sergeant Barnes, yeah. And they're like, oh, this is somebody they're both like hardcore, experienced war vets, but one is like, I'm surviving through pure savagery, and the other one is like, I still have honor. This is a war, and this is a fight, and they are the enemy. They are not animals. The other one is like, they are animals. They are something for me to kill, so I can survive this. I'm completely... they're just such good characters, and he's torn between this dichotomy, and he has to take a little bit from both to survive this, and it's such a good war film. It's a film I really think a lot more people should watch, because I don't hear anybody talking about this movie. Yeah, I haven't heard very much about this movie either. Like, I mentioned this to people, and they're kind of like, Charlie Sheen was in a movie? I thought he was just he was just on 2.5 Men. I thought that was his whole career. But yeah, Platoon is just such a good movie. And it has one of like one of the best scenes, I think, in cinema, where it's just Willem Dafoe's character and Sergeant Barnes, and they meet in the jungle. Oh. And he lowers the gun and raises it back up again. He lowers the gun. Willem Dafoe's like, he looks so relieved and smiles. He raises the gun back up again. And he knows exactly what's going to happen. And it's just such a powerful thing, because you can tell both of the characters aren't sure what's going to happen next. They're not sure. Sergeant Barnes isn't sure if he's going to actually do it. If he's actually going to shoot Willem Dafoe's character. Yeah. But he doesn't. And then it leads to the most iconic image of this movie. The meme image of this movie. The thing that's on the box. Yeah, the thing that's on the box on every poster where Willem Dafoe's running out of the jungle, throws his arms up in the air. Mm-hmm. You know, you hear the jaguar roar and the eagle screech. Oh god. Yeah, it's just such a great movie. Well done movie. Just well done. This is probably, again, one of the most watchable movies. Very I think that's watchable. A lot of the things that come up in the top 10, or at least in this range, is super watchable. Yes, I do enjoy my movies to have a good message and themes and whatnot, but like it's got to be watchable. Right? Yeah. Like, that was the biggest problem with like Bringing Up Baby, is like that first 15 minutes is so hard to watch. It's so unwatchable. And then like the last like 30 minutes of the movie is like really funny and great, and you're just kind of like, what the fuck? Why? But the next movie, I don't have a good segue into this. So yeah, it's Do the Right Thing. Number 85 or 5 or whatever. I think we stopped counting. But yeah, we have Do the Right Thing. It's a Spike Lee joint. Yeah. And it is the most mature take on race relations in America that I think has ever been made, and it is in fact an amazing film. It's simply just an amazing movie. Yeah, across the board. Even things that make it, even anything that is wrong with the movie, it's a thing where, well, the things that work about it just work so well. Like, the theming and the messaging carry this movie so well. Even if there's a problem in like the editing at times, like it's just such a small thing to kind of put on the side and be like, no, we can ignore the rest of the movie is good enough to where we can take this and just kind of put that on the side. We don't need to worry about that. Yeah. Because the rest of it holds up so well. And it's such a, like, kind of like a weird movie to think is so good, because it's just about a little neighborhood with a pizza shop. Yeah. Like, that's it. That's the movie. Like, the movie could take place on a stage. Like, yeah. That he made a point about, I mean, the opening sequence where you have Rosa Perez dancing to, you know, whatever, and it's on a stage, and the background is like the painted streets of the Bed-Stuy neighborhood, and he really feels like Spike Lee's trying to make like Your Town, except it's about
his town in Bed-Stuy, and he's like, this is the shit, we like, it's hot, it's a pizza shop, there's tension, America has, the racist tendency. It's the thing that happens, and we address it in this, and it's the most mature take on it. Everybody is like, everything is reasonable. All the arguments he presents are like, this is just how life is. It fucking sucks, but it is what it is, and we're just addressing it.
We have to be able to realize how other people are going to think about other people, and like kind of be able to still interact and have a conversation, like, even if we feel that somebody else is like wrong, right? We can't just start screaming at them like
Bugging Out,
like Radio Raheem and Bugging Out do to Sal.
Yeah,
right. They disagreed with him, so what did? They just screamed at him. They didn't try to have any conversation at all. I think that's like
we need the dialogue. We need
the
mayor.
The foil of it. You need the mayor.
Which, man, I love the mayor. That, again, he's like my favorite character in all these movies we watch. I wish he could be my granddad. That guy was great.
And I love how none of the characters in the movie are perfect. None of them are like great people in general. Like, the mayor is like a nice guy or whatever,
but he's a drunk.
He's a literal like drunk bum. Like,
yeah, even Mookie, who's like our main protagonist, and he's like, oh, working in the pizza shop, but he's kind of an asshole.
He's not around his kid at all. He goes to Sal to get paid after Sal's place burns down.
He bails out on his job all the time to go do other shit. And it's like a thing where...
Also, and then you have Rosa Perez.
Also Rosa Perez.
I mean, that's what he's bailing out on the job to go do.
Exactly, also Rosa Perez. And then you have Sal, who is like, oh, he's this guy who's like, yeah, making all this food to these people and blah, blah, blah. But he's still like... He's kind of angry about like being questioned by people in the neighborhood, and he's so defensive about like his place. This is my place, not your place. This is my place. He has this over defensiveness quality about him, and
he's also not good at talking to his kids.
He's not. Pino and Vito they fucked up. I guess not fucked up, but one of them is super racist, and the other one is like, I kind of got no spine. It happens. But that's the thing. They're all flawed characters, but it's so raw and real, and that's what's so good about this movie.
It's just so it's so reasonable. It's so good. I think this is another movie like The Last Picture Show, where it's like, I'm not sure if I would recommend it, but I wish more people would watch it.
Yeah. I mean, this movie, I know for a fact, is watched in at least my film school that I went to. We studied this movie. I've seen this movie probably 3 or 4 times in a bunch of different curriculums, and it's for a good reason. This movie definitely is a great film.
It deserves its spot. And it's a quintessentially American movie for the list.
It very much is. The most American kind of movie. But another movie that is maybe not so American, because it goes from Italy, but it never comes to America. That's Night at the Opera.
Is that a very American thing to do?
Just go to America.
Go to America.
To America.
To America. Night at the Opera.
Night at the Opera. The movie that saved the 30s
Saved the 30s comedies for me.
Introduced you to the Marx Brothers,
which are hilarious. I just loved the movie. Like, I thought it was so good. I was really hoping. Like, I went into that movie with I was huffing the hopium.
Yeah.
Trying to like make sure like, okay, like, we've been building up this movie to maybe save the 30s comedies for me. Like, I'm just gonna like let it come to me, like, hopefully, and it just delivered. Delivered hard.
Within the first like 5 minutes, we're sitting there and you just start howling behind me.
Because the jokes are still funny, and you can kind of see, like, this is where these jokes come from. Like, these jokes I've seen millions of times have come from these people, and they do it so well.
It's the thing where you can give me a joke you've heard 1,000 times, but if you get a master comedian to tell you, it sounds brand new. And these guys are like master comedians. And it's like, oh, I've seen this gag 100 times, done, copied, repeated, turned onto their head and changed in 1,000 different ways. But this is the OG, and these guys show why they're the OG. They're the best in the business.
And it's just so well done. So funny. All the scenes in the movie are so memorable. Mm-hmm. Like, the scene where they're in, like, the they're on the ship and they're like in the little cabin.
Yes,
and like everybody comes into the cabin.
It's like, oh, do you need any food? Yeah, like a hard-boiled egg. I'm gonna need a thing of toast, 2 hard-boiled eggs. That's a great bit. They're all piling in there. It's like, hey, is my mother in here? No, I don't think so, but you're welcome to check. And she starts crawling over like 4 people.
Yes, she's like literally on top of the room. There's also the part where they break for the music, right? Yes. On the back of the ship.
And you get to see Harpo and Chico just styling.
They really jam out.
Yeah. Oh, and when they're in the hotel and they're just like, hey, where are you the only one in here? It's like, absolutely I am. All right, what's in this room? They go in and they start spinning around the room.
They start spinning around the 2 rooms.
And they start setting up like a
classic gag.
It's a classic gag. That's the thing. This movie is like killer gag, killer gag, killer gag. Every 5 minutes there's a new gag. Every second there's a new thing Groucho is riffing on. And every moment in the background you can see Harpo or Chico just doing some physical comedy. It's wall-to-wall jokes and it's a masterfully done film. For how like weirdly like disjointed it is.
And you can tell that it's a movie that doesn't need to take itself seriously.
Yeah.
That was like something that I kind of like put me off about the beginning of Bringing Up Baby, is that the movie seemed to take itself more seriously than it should have. Mm-hmm. But this movie like gets it out of the way real quick and in the beginning of the movie where it's like, no, don't worry. We don't need to be taking anything seriously here.
You're like, we're just here to meme. It's gonna be fun.
We're just here to have some fun.
And I guess it's a thing. It's like, oh, why is this above Do the Right Thing? It's like, Night at the Opera is 90 years old now?
Very, very old.
Very, very, very old. And I'm like, this movie, I think, actually hit that moment of, it's actually timeless.
Yes.
We're watching this movie in the year of our Lord, 2020-something, and...
2022.
Thank you. And it still works. It's still funny.
It's still really good. I could probably put it on right after this and just giggle to myself for like 90 minutes or however long the movie is.
You'll go have yourself a giggle, mate.
Have myself a giggle, mate.
And like, it's one of these movies where I see it and I'm like, I look forward to seeing more Marx Brothers movies on this list.
Yes.
There's one more that I'm sure of, and that's Duck Soup, and it's gonna be great.
Unfortunately, we've already watched it.
You know, yeah, we watched it, and Randy's like, "Yo, can we put on some more Marx Brothers? Like, real quick."
Real quick.
That's how good this movie was. It made Randy hop skip over the list.
Let's watch some more Marx Brothers. Let's get ourselves some more of them. I love them. They're so good at what they do. They come off so naturally with their jokes. Like they just come one after another, and it's very like clean the way they do. It's not like they're really like reaching that much, and if they're reaching for the joke, it's like played up that way.
Yeah, and it's one of these things where it makes me look at comedies now, and I'm like, can we just do what they were doing 90 years ago? Because that shit worked. This stuff doesn't work anymore. Or I mean, I guess comedy is relative.
Comedies nowadays are very hit or miss.
That's how good this movie is. It makes me reflect on the comedies of now, and like has changed my view on them.
Actually, think about comedies nowadays, which I haven't done in a while.
But another movie that makes you think about things that haven't happened in a while. That's Sophie's Choice.
Oh, oof! What a transition.
Oof. What are you talking about? I'm talking about how good Meryl Streep is.
Oh yeah,
as an actress.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Also, Meryl Streep in this movie.
So good. Such a striking performance. Kind of, a little like surprised that Sophie's Choices end up at number 3 here. But
you lobbied for it.
The 2 movies that are above it is like, okay, yeah, I understand.
Yeah, Sophie's Choice is up here because Randy lobbied the hell out of it. And I kind of agree. I mean, it was our number 1 in the first Milestone episode. And it is a thing where Meryl Streep as an actress is so good.
Very good.
Kevin Kline is so good. Every performance is great. And it's a movie that talks about, like, memory, the fallacy of memory. Like, it talks about the Holocaust in such a, like, maybe not a mature way, but in a way that really gets to the heart of, like, the horrors of what was going on. And it also gets to just...
Well, it's more about the surviving it. And, like, what that means to people, Like, what that meant to Sophie's character, right? Was basically she wanted to forget everything.
Yeah.
She wanted to become a whole new person. And she ended up getting with a person who also wanted to become a whole new person. Who didn't want to be themselves. Sophie didn't want to be herself. And I'm terrible.
Kevin
Kline's
character. I'm
yeah.
sorry, it's been a minute. I
yeah.
I was able to remember everybody else's character.
So bad with character names, but Sophie and him, like, they're both very similar people, and that's why they're together. They both don't want to be themselves. They don't want to be the person that they actually are.
Same with Stingo. Stingo wants to be this writer, but he's just like, oh, I was a farm boy, country bumpkin, and now I'm coming up to New York to become a writer, a great American novelist. And it's the story of these people wants to be something different.
I haven't thought about that before. Is that it's kind of like a foil to them, right? The foil to Sophie and Kevin Kline's character, and Stingo, where Stingo is seen as like a pretty normal progression of becoming somebody new, right?
Yeah.
While Meryl Streep and Kevin Kline are like a very unnatural progression, becoming somebody new.
Yeah, Kevin Kline is because he's, well, mentally ill. And it's a thing where it's such a great reveal.
It is such a good reveal.
And then you have Sophie, who is, well, she's going through trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
forced upon her.
Forced upon her. And it's a movie that just, it's so compelling to watch because, like the trauma that she's going through, you feel for it in everything she says. And, like, that's the thing. The performance in this is so good.
Really
This
good.
movie is up here because the performance is by far one of the best that we've seen.
The characters are all done very well. Even, like, the side characters, like, when you get to the Sophie's flashbacks, right?
Yeah.
And you have, like, the German characters that are, like, around her. And they give such good performances. And it's just, everything about the movie is just so good. Like, the whole interactions between Sophie and Stingo, where there's, like, kind of that connection, but Stingo's, like, not sure if it's just him. And just how everything comes across the movie is just done so well.
This is a melodrama that works really well.
Really well.
Like, Titanic is also a melodrama, big emotions and big things. Sophie's Choice is another one of these melodramas, but I'm like, this is how you do it right. Like, the central characters and the central focus is just so compelling.
Because the movie is pretty good, all things considered, even before we get to Sophie's flashbacks, to where it starts becoming that, like, the more about the Holocaust and her experiences and why she is the way she is. When it's just, like, the love triangle between the three of them, it's still a pretty decent movie. And then when it gets to that, it's like, oh no, this is a great movie. This is a really, really great movie.
It's a movie that just evolves to be better.
And it gets just better the longer you watch it. The more you get into it. And it's just like one of those movies that, like, really hits you hard in the heart.
But yeah, the ending of that movie just hits just right. It just hurts just right.
Yeah. It's hard. The ending of the movie's hard. It is hard.
You know what else is hard, Randy? Finding the truth. Or finding doubt. Like in our number 2 movie. Whatever.
Case closed or One Truth Prevails.
One Truth Prevails. And case closed. Well, it's 12 Angry Men.
Yeah, it's 12 Angry Men.
Yeah, this movie, you wanted to be the number 1 spot so bad.
I wanted it, but, spoiler alert, if you've been keeping track, Sunrise is number 1. Sunrise, The Song of Two Humans. And, I already loved 12 Angry Men. It used to be my favorite movie a long time ago. And it still holds up today as being just a fantastic movie. It's such a well-done performance with so little.
Great from beginning to end. It uses one room perfectly. And every performance. Henry Fonda is amazing. Lee Cobb is a revelation in this movie. He is so good. And the story is so compelling. It's one of these movies where I'm like, this can be cinema. Great actors in a room. This shows you all you need is a good story, good performances. Everything else is superfluous.
Yes. There's nothing flashy in this movie at all. Nothing. It's just done so well, so straight, so compelling, so personal, or like so relatable.
In a tight 90.
In a tight 90. It's just everything you want from a movie. It's just everything's there.
Yeah, and this is a movie that we were talking about it, and I realized a bunch of people saw this in school.
Yeah.
And people are like, everybody I've talked to who's seen this in, high school or whatever, high school English class, they're like, oh yeah, it's one of your men. Oh, that's a great movie. When you see a movie in school, the answer is, oh, I don't remember. Dick, I was asleep. People are like, no, this movie was great.
Oh, that movie's good.
Yeah.
It's really good, and it shows like a very
universality about it.
but it also shows a very good like insight into like the justice system, where all that's required is doubt. Doubt is the main catalyst in like the system we currently have, and it's just such a great showing of it, and it's just such a unique like experience of a movie.
It's a movie I feel this movie actually everyone should watch. Everyone.
Yeah, I would recommend this movie in a heartbeat to anybody.
And it's a movie where I'm like, it's almost perfect. It almost is. It really is.
I mean, I don't know if anything I would really change about the movie, but it definitely seems like, I'm okay with not having it at number one. I mean, obviously, it's not even number one on this list.
Exactly. I made stronger arguments for Sunrise. And that's the thing. Like, 12 Angry Men is almost a perfect movie. And the biggest argument anyone can have is it looks kind of cheap. Like, that was the only thing we were able to come up.
Sure,
it looks kind of cheap.
It does kind of look a little cheap, but it's like
it's still such a good movie.
It plays into like the good. It plays into the movie. The fact that it looks like so. It looks cheap, but everything about the movie is just done so well. It's like you could like if this movie was originally presented as like, oh yes, some college students came up with this movie. You'd be like, I kind of believe it.
A little bit.
A lot. You're like You almost got me. It can't be right, but it's like it's because it's so like low budget, but just done so well. It's one of these things where it's like, you can do this. Like this looks doable.
This is like.
Can we do this? This looks doable.
Yes, this should be that movie people watch and they're like, oh yeah, no, I can make film. If this is what it requires to make great cinema, I can do this. This movie's an inspiration.
It's a really inspirational movie, very well acted, well directed too.
So well directed.
For having such like a small kind of space to work with. I mean, obviously, they could film wherever they needed to be, They don't need to film in the same room the whole time, but to portray such a small space and to do it so well, it took probably like a really steady hand from the director, a real steady look at everything.
And Sidney Lumet, who directed this, it was his first feature film. He did TV before this. He had that strong control of cinematic language at that stage. I'm like, the guy's a master.
It is a masterpiece of the film.
Also, I do have his book, and he has a whole chapter about how he made the movie.
Really?
If you would like to borrow it.
You might let me borrow it.
Yes, but a movie that more people should borrow is a movie that has kind of been forgotten in the
It's
eras
hard
of
to
cinema.
find.
So hard to find. I had to find a copy in Korea, I think. I had to get it shipped here. And you can't find it streaming anywhere. I couldn't even find it on YouTube, which is weird, because this movie's from 1927 or whatever, and it's Sunrise, A Song of Two Humans, the number one film on the list. And it is pure cinema. It's pure cinema.
Feast for the eyes. It is such a real human story. I mean, it's a song of two humans, and this movie fits in a very strange place in the history of movies because it is between sound and silent movies. It has sound.
It has sound. It is the first film with a synchronized score. But for synchronized dialogue, which is way more famous, and the jazz singer comes out like 2 weeks or a month after this movie, which kind of overshadowed it and made it a bomb.
So this movie has sound, but it doesn't have anybody really talking to each other.
It has no spoken dialogue that's required of the main actors at all. It still uses title cards. And it still uses title cards. Some of them are like beautifully done, and they have cool effects where they melt away when it's drowning.
Those are so good.
Yeah, and it's another thing where it's like the performances in it. It's a silent film. And you're like, oh, it's old school. They're going to be kind of hokey.
Silent film, like, they're going to really have to play everything up.
It's going to look like Nosferatu and all that stuff, but it's like, no. The performances in these, I'm like, they're so just emblematic of, like, humanity. It's like there's subtlety to it, which you don't really see in a lot of, like, silent films. And they're portraying so much with, like, minor movements, broad movements, big movements, and small movements. Like, it's such a just beautiful film, and the score in this is it's amazing. You can listen to it almost by itself, and it would just be this kind of beautiful.
I'm not sure I go that
Probably not.
far.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. It is a beautiful score
Up there, but
it
yeah,
is
it's a good
beautiful
score. I really enjoyed it with the movie. I thought it really gave the movie that like extra little edge to it to like really put it up here. But I mean, the main thing that about the story that I really enjoy is just the story between the two characters and like where it starts and where it ends and their journey together and just the humanity of it, the personal struggle with them,
the harsh complexity of love, which love is the most like human thing, right? It's irrational, but we desire it, but it's something we can't force to happen. It just has to be, and it's just, and this movie just looks at it in such a way that it's beautiful. This movie is beautiful. It is pure cinema. It's
capital B beautiful. Like it is no exaggeration, no like just saying it to say it. It is legitimately a beautiful movie. It is a feast for the eyes in all senses of the words.
It was the hardest movie for us to talk about because it's such a visual movie. It's a movie that I would say if you can find it anywhere, watch it.
100%. I will recommend this movie over any of the other movies on this list. If you can find a version of this movie to watch it. It is a feast for the eyes. It is such a compelling story.
It is really watch
so
it.
So interesting.
Yes, and really, really watch it. Just like put it on your TV, turn the lights off, silence the phone, just watch it. It's a movie that was almost lost to time. Like it was in the Fox production fire that like burned down the whole fucking studio. And this movie was thought lost for like 20 years until they were able to like jerry-rig a copy together from old still prints. So this movie was the first movie to win Best Picture at the Oscars. It's a movie that everybody since day one was like, this is the best cinema can offer. And it was almost disappeared. We owe like the cinematic gods to watch this movie.
To be able to see this movie.
And yeah, that's why I think this movie is like the best movie we've seen so far.
It's kind of hard that like this movie just kind of like easily just kind of like strolls in like nonchalantly and just goes like, no, I'm the best here. Yeah. And you're just like, motherfucker. Man, like I like a lot of the other movies on this list. I love
Men. I thought was going to be the number one spot.
Yeah, I thought so too.
You know, the only other one I was like, oh, okay, maybe, you know, Do the Right Thing will go up and, you know, be up there. Yeah, I really like Platoon. Oh, that was a surprise.
Yeah, I love Sophie's Choice and Night at the Theater, or Night at the Opera.
Yeah, and then Sunrise showed up and was like, oh, no, guys. Hold my beer. I'm going to show you what cinema looks like.
Sunrise is just here to tell us, like, no, I deserve to be so much higher. You don't even know.
You don't even understand how good I am. But yeah, So
yeah, spoiler alert, Sunrise probably going to be top 2 next list, at least.
I mean, it is what it is, but yeah.
It's just, and it's so hard to talk about. It's so hard to describe the feeling you get from a movie, from the visuals of the movie, like from everything it presents to you, and the story between the two characters, because they go through so much in the movie, and you just... It feels very naturally progressing, and so like
it's a thing where you don't even consciously like interpret it. You just feel it.
Yes, exactly.
That's the beauty of the movie. It makes you feel it. Everything that's happening, you feel it. You don't interpret it. You don't think about it. It just you understand it because you feel it on a like empathetic level.
It's such on another level than these other movies.
God, I can't wait. I can't wait for more. I might have to rewatch Sunrise.
Might have to rewatch Night at the Opera.
And then we'll like rewatch Last Picture Show.
Yeah, we gotta rewatch Last Picture Show.
There's a lot of movies we gotta rewatch.
There's some very good.
We've seen nothing but good movies. Alright, we've seen nothing but 18 good movies.
Oof.
But yes, everybody. But that was our Milestone episode number 2. Very happy with this one. Can't wait to bring you more. And next week we're going to be talking about Billy Wilder's The Apartment,
which you have been dying to have me see.
I fucking love that movie. It's like the best script. Jack Lemmon's in it. He's so funny. Oh my god, the movie's fantastic.
I thought Sixth Sense had a really good script.
You don't even know.
Oh shit! All right, gee.
Sorry, I gotta throw it out there. But yeah, so can't wait to watch The Apartment. That's going to be next week. If you wanted to find that, you can check us out on Spotify, Anchor FM, yada, yada, yada. Anywhere a podcast can be found at the Film Odyssey Podcast, as well as our YouTube channel, In the Frame. That's In the Frame on YouTube. Subscribe, leave a comment, whatever the hip kids do.
Yeah, do whatever you feel like.
Yeah, it'll be fun. With that, Randy, any last words?
Good night.
See you next week, everybody.